Welcome to CS442. If you're watching this video, you've presumably found your way to the course webpage, which is, of course, at student.cs.uwaterloo.ca/tilde CS442. Found your way to the first module, and found your way here. So you should have some sense of how this course is going to be organized. Let me be very honest about how this offering of CS442 is designed and how it sort of isn't designed. I was in the process of moving things around for a more conventional in-person offering of CS442 when the powers that be threw a spanner in the works and made the first 3 weeks online only. Setting aside whether that was the right decision, it's extremely annoying for it to be 3 weeks, since it gives us very little time to react if it's extended further or things continue to change. I've never taught this course in person, so any in-person activity, I'm developing as I go. It needs to be made for this term while I'm going. So it's really, really important that I know when things are happening. And now I'm unsure if or when in-person teaching will resume. So my approach is essentially to flip the in-person component and basically teach this course the same I did last year. That is, the actual course learning material is online. The assignments are online, the exams are online, and we'll use the in-person experience to explore programming languages more deeply using examples and demonstrations. That whole experience will be quite ad hoc, so it should be quite interesting. That's also probably where I'm best in teaching programming languages, because I am a programming languages dweeb, and so that's giving me the option to just be enthusiastic about programming languages instead of lecture. There are 6 assignments and 5 exams. The exams are weighted to have 5, so that's, they're all reasonably weighted. They're not 50% each, instead of the usual 2. And there is no final exam per se. There's no exam during the exam period. Instead, assignment 6 is due at the end of the exam period. You can find more about the weighting of the assignments and the exam on the outline, which is linked from the course webpage, of course. Assignments will be submitted via the UWaterloo Submit program. That's not Marmoset or anything like that. It is a program called Submit on the student Linux environment, and exams will be done on Learn. In both cases, there'll be more information at the time. They're not starting immediately. In addition, graduate students in CS 642 must do a final project. Email me individually to discuss what that final project will be. I don't have a prescribed final project. We need to actually discuss it, and each student will do their own. Let me introduce myself. I'm Gregor Richards, hopefully you already know that. Programming language design and implementation is my passion. I do work in just-in-time compilers and gradually typed programming languages. If you'd like to know more about either of those topics in particular, which we won't really discuss in this course in any depth, I am always happy to talk to no end on those topics. I mean, I'd better be. They're my field. CS442 is a course that always reflects its instructor. Everybody who teaches CS442 is obviously a languages dweeb. I'm certainly a programming languages dweeb. But we all have different feelings on what's the most important thing to cover in the programming languages field. Programming languages is a huge field with a lot of different facets, and we all have different interests that are reflected into how we teach the course. This kind of diversity is a good thing. My version of CS442 is about programming paradigms. You can read what I have to say about language paradigms in the module text, but in short, I hope that by the end of this course, you have a selection not of programming languages, but of ways to think about programming. I'll be asking you to write assignments in OCaml and Smalltalk, not because I think you'll necessarily be doing a lot of OCaml or Smalltalk programming in the real world, you might, but because a programmer who has experience with an eclectic range of programming languages has at their disposal many ways of thinking about programming. The skill isn't the language. The skill isn't OCaml or Smalltalk. It's how that language approaches software. To that end, as we study programming paradigms, we will look at particular programming languages, but as exemplars. I don't expect you to actually learn to program usefully in any of the exemplar programming languages, except for Smalltalk, which you have to use for assignments. Of many programming languages, I like to say, for instance, I don't really know Ruby. I know Ruby well enough to write a Ruby interpreter, but not enough to actually write Ruby code. It's that kind of understanding that we're aiming for. And don't think of that as a higher level of understanding. It's just a different area of understanding. It's one thing to know how a language is designed. It's another thing to know all the libraries and all the basic instructions. I want you to understand these languages and these paradigms conceptually, so that you can apply those concepts in other situations, in other programming languages that you're perhaps more likely to experience in the real world. I'd also like to take just a moment to justify the choice of OCaml and Smalltalk, specifically GNU Smalltalk. First, don't just think that these are my favorite programming languages. They're not. Actually, I sincerely hate both of them and hate programming in them, but I hate all programming languages, so that doesn't really tell you very much. I chose them because they're good representatives of functional and object-oriented programming, respectively, and neither are trying to be multi-paradigm languages, so they're representatives of functional and OO, but little else. Okay, aside, OCaml kind of is trying to be multi-paradigm. It has object-oriented features, but I don't let you use the object-oriented features, so there. These languages should actually feel very restrictive. They're meant to be restrictions. In order to understand these programming paradigms, at some point you need to program in them in a fairly narrow way without just using other programming paradigms you're more familiar with. A way that forces you to think like an OCaml programmer or like a Smalltalk programmer. On the course webpage, there is a schedule that shows exactly what you should be reading each week, exactly when each assignment is due, and when each exam is. Until we meet in person, I'll be posting an update video every week on Piazza as well. This video counts as the update video for this week, and other announcements will be on Piazza too, so that link is obviously important. Good luck. It's gonna be a weird term. I really have no idea what's gonna happen this term. I guess we'll see, but I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn something about programming languages.